I hate those folks because they don't, they're
Exactly.
mean.
Now they've had this interaction with this person that's very close to it and knowledgeable about it, but it was a negative interaction. So now there's a new stigma to fight, right?
Howdy, folks. Brian Kusko here at Redline Report, and today we're going to sit down with Mike from Herp Collectors. Mike has been fairly new to the hobby and industry in the last 4 years and has started doing his own interviewing and podcasting. He will actually be interviewing folks at AnimalCon, or has interviewed folks at AnimalCon under the Redline banner. So Mike has, I think, a great perspective to add to the hobby, in particularly the podcasting space. So why don't you guys stay tuned and give a listen for what Mike has to say. You're watching Redline Report.
That's really good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long have you been like doing the interviews now? I mean, what made you decide to even pursue doing these in the first place?
Yeah, so initially, like getting into reptiles just in general, because we haven't been in it for that long, back to 2020. And so getting into it 2020 was all new to me. You know how it was in 2020, like with COVID, like the
Oh, yeah.
prices were all over the place. Like it was just nuts, right? Got into the ball pythons, was super excited, kind of went down that genetic rabbit hole, was watching the things on YouTube, was got into like the morph market, started getting into like the Insta and the Facebook groups and all that stuff. And so just really kind of the sum total of all that stuff really just fed the excitement for us. And so once we started to think about it from a business perspective, I started thinking about, okay, so I'm investing this money into these snakes. When it comes time to sell the snakes, no one's gonna know who I am. So I need to do something to get out there, get my name out there. And so one of the things that we decided to do was start a podcast. So we started the podcast, Clutch Conversations, and it was just like a live podcast. We are going to do it on a weekly basis where we would invite people in, because one of the things that I was worried about with starting a podcast so early into like our reptile keeping experience was no one was going to want to hear from me because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about, right? And so the interview format was kind of a way to account for that, and inviting people in who knew a lot more than me. I could ask them questions. It was a way for not only me to learn, but also the listeners to learn as well. And so it just made perfect sense for me. And so we started doing it on a weekly basis, and we were really learning on the fly with a lot of the stuff. Like we did some work to get like some nice backgrounds and stuff, in terms of like the StreamYard background. We'd already had our branding in place. And then we just kind of like went from there. And so if you look at the first episode versus like where we are now, it's like a totally different really product. Just because we've been learning things along the way. We're trying to be innovative with some of the things that we're doing and kind of push the envelope and just kind of like grow organically. And it's just kind of like the natural kind of progression of things. And so it's been really fun. One of the things I didn't realize when I first got into it was how much fun it was going to be and how much I was going to start like really starting to get addicted to this stuff. And like I was talking with you about like all the tech gear and all the equipment, like your cameras, your lights, your audio stuff. Like it's just really exciting. And so like now it's a new rabbit hole that I'm going down, kind of like with the reptiles and stuff. And so it's just like it's having a compounding effect on what we're doing, because it's another element to kind of build into and kind of like grow around.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's definitely kind of what happened for me as well. Like going down that rabbit hole of what happens with video stuff and lighting, and just kind of nerding out on all that stuff and having fun with it and really getting excited about it. And like every time you have a good shot, like that's why I have all this ridiculous equipment set up around me. Dave will come in here and be like, "Why are you doing this?" It's because when I get back to my computer and I look at it, I'm getting ready to edit. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad that I put the light there now." And like it's like just that small change. Like light was here forever, and I put the light here, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was hoping would happen if you're just putting the light over there. And it's that little tiny stuff that, like you said, helps you nerd out. And I like your idea too. That was kind of also my thought process when I started doing interviews. Is like, I know some stuff. I've been keeping snakes most of my life, but I'm not in any form of expert level or even close to that. Just like a kid with some snakes. But there's people that knew so much more than me. It would be great to be able to learn from them, like what they do, what unique perspective they add, and then for a lot of other people to be able to see it at the same time instead of just like a one-on-one conversation that's not recorded, be able to pass that information on. And lucky for us, there are so many people I feel in this industry and hobby who are willing to give their time to share that knowledge. My understanding is that's not always the way it was, and sometimes people are very secretive about what they've learned. And it seems the opposite is true today, where so many people are willing to share the information that they've picked up over time and are excited to share it for the most part. I think there's maybe still a few people out there that are a little more like, covetous, or not covetous, but like just kind of holding on to their information and don't necessarily want to share it. But that seems to be rare these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've heard like a similar thing. Like back in the day, it was a totally different ball game. Like you said, everyone was holding everything close to the vest, and I think the dynamics of it all was different. It was still new. There were only like a small amount of people really to kind of like tap into for like the financial aspect of it. Whereas now, it's not as new. There's more information out there. The pool has kind of grown. The dynamics of everything has grown. Like now we have social media that's a lot more prevalent, and so like everyone's kind of out there. And so I think all of those things and probably some more too have really kind of fed into like a more open, collaborative environment, which I personally feel is like really good for the hobby. It's really good for the industry. There's a lot of mistakes I would have made if I didn't have conversations with people that were open with me, upfront with me, and really kind of steered me in the right path. And that saves you money over time. That saves the animals over time. Like that just saves your energy over time, right? Because there's emotions that go into this. No one wants to see anything happen to their animals. No one wants to see things go bad when they can help it. And so having that knowledge and being able to apply something that someone with experience has kind of like imparted upon you, that's huge. And it just really kind of feeds into an overall more helpful, productive, fruitful type environment.
Yeah, definitely. And there's on that same thread, there's like folks I can kind of understand like the folks that would want to hold it close, and then when it was smaller and there were a lot less people, like sometimes when people come in, it can kind of ruin things for you, versus like a small little town that has a nice like thing happening, and they got a nice little small community, and then it's a really nice area, and then a lot more people move in, and then it stops becoming the nice place that it was because there were less people. So I can understand that mentality, but at the same time, if you don't educate the new folks coming in on the stuff that you've learned at your time, then you're kind of also going to create a population of folks that are not educated and don't know the things that you know, and that's going to be part of what detracts from it. So, as much as I can understand some of the idea of like why you wouldn't want to share with others because you're afraid people are going to come in and ruin it, which can happen and does happen. The more you add more people to it, more potential problems will arise. The more people to gather around. However, I think that sharing the information and all the knowledge that you have, how to do it successfully and do it well, is more beneficial because people are going to come in anyway. Might as well educate them on their way in versus not.
Exactly, exactly. It's all about the long game. Like even with the ball pythons, like we're planning these like really complex projects from a genetic perspective, and it's all about the long game, right? We're thinking like two, three, four pairings, like down the line, and we're building like the building blocks for it now. Well, it's the same thing with the folks coming into the community. Like I get excited, like I saw the same thing at Daytona. I saw the same thing in Atlanta. I see the same thing here. And what that is like all these kids that are running around and they're super excited. They're super stoked. They're getting exposed to the reptiles early, whether it's their parents bringing them in because they always were into reptiles, or maybe it's even something new for them. But what they're doing is like they're creating like the keepers and breeders and influencers or what have you of the future. And so that's one of the things that really excites me because like I see a positive impact on the long game.
Yeah, the kids for sure, man. Just like you said, run around the show and seeing the excitement because it's very common cliche that people say that the kids are the future, but it's true. Like they are, and to see how excited some of them are, and like just dream for ourselves of like what their dreams are going to be and what dreams they will have realized in this industry, like how far they could take it, beyond where it is now, and even just the normalization. We live in this very small kind of bubble compared to the rest of the population that think that snakes are maybe weird or reptiles, and this kind of keeping these animals is like kind of strange. It's becoming less and less so, and the more that we have smart kids coming in that are educated and about the animals and know and are able to share with their parents and teach not just the older generations but the newer generations coming in. I mean, it's just growing it all for the better and making it a beautiful thing instead of what it could be, which is an ugly thing. A thing that where it's looked at like super countercultural and very against the grain and dirty and filthy and gross, and all these things, these connotations that it can get. And then every now and then something happens that is bad and it could get that look,
Right.
um but the seeing the kids gives me the future hope instead of future like doom and gloom or
Yeah,
what.
absolutely, absolutely. And those, like you said, man, those negative connotations, those stereotypes, those things are out there. I grew up on those very same like negative stereotypes, particularly like when it came to snakes and stuff. Obviously, like lots of people like they're scared of them. I was scared of snakes. I'm not gonna hold you. I was scared of snakes growing up because I'd heard like all the negative things, right? I didn't know the difference between like different snakes. I didn't know like the like venomous and stuff like that. Like I would always call it poisonous for one, and so I didn't even understand like that very simple dynamic. And so like you hear all these negative things, and if you don't know any better, you don't have like the knowledge and understanding to kind of like counter that kind of stuff. And so I'm glad I got exposed to it. I'm glad I know now. I do hear people still like when I tell them that I work with snakes, like a lot of times they're either like really interested or maybe they work with them, but more often than not, they're kind of like, and then like they always tell that one story about the lady that was sleeping and the big snake sized her up. But then, like, I don't get frustrated with it, but it's an opportunity. It's like, yeah, I've heard that before, and let me tell you why that's not the case. And then they start to get like intrigued. Maybe they're not at a point to where they're willing to hold a snake or they're willing to keep a snake, but now they're at least intrigued and thinking about it differently.
That's one of my favorite ways to approach, and I think is also the most successful ways to approach anybody who's just lacking of knowledge or is ignorant to whatever it is. Like that story is just based in ignorance, right? Um, and to be able to, instead of look at somebody and say, "How are you such an idiot that you don't know that that's not true?" Instead of looking at them, "Oh, you just don't know that that's not true. Let me
Right.
tell you why it's not." And when you take that approach, that helps quell the ignorance that is out there and makes things better versus getting mad or angry at the person for not having the information that you do, which is kind of the thread of what we've been talking about is like, don't get mad at folks because they don't know what you know. They don't know it yet. You can get mad at them, but it's not going to help the situation. You might as well help educate them and try to be as kind and understanding and realize that not everybody has gathered the knowledge that maybe you have at this point in life. And you can help make that better by sharing it and giving them a positive experience of learning instead of feeling like, oh yeah, I met this person that n- knew this stuff that I didn't, but they were such a jerk that like it almost puts them in the opposite direction, trying to want to learn and do something better. They get in a space of like, yeah, I hate those folks because they don't, they're
Exactly. And
mean.
now they've had this interaction with this person that's very close to it and knowledgeable about it, but it was a negative interaction. So now there's a new stigma to fight, right? And so why create that stigma? I think long term it's beneficial for us, for the animals, just for this entire industry and kind of everything that goes into it is for people to have understanding. I mean, you look at like the things that go on with like USARC and stuff like that in terms of, or not necessarily USR, but the things that they're helping to fight against, right? Oftentimes there's people in very high places with a lot of power that are making decisions that impact us, whether they impact us from a pet perspective, they impact us from just strictly a keeper perspective or a financial perspective. They're making decisions about something that they don't really have any understanding about. And so I think it's important to kind of really be able to pull people into the fold and help them to understand what it is we do, why we do it, because the more people that understand, then the easier it is to make our case when these various things come up. Like for example, we were talking like something negative happened recently with the person that got bit by the venomous snake. I don't know him personally, and I don't know all the details. But one of the things that I did take away from it is it can be a bad look for those on the outside looking in because they don't understand like all of this stuff, and so they can just really it's a snake. Like a lot of people you talk to, a snake is a snake is a snake is a snake. There's no nuance involved with like the type of snake. There's no nuance involved with like responsible keeping versus irresponsible keeping. Like it's just all in the snake bucket. And so when they see something like that, they make a snap judgment and just kind of like view it through like this snap judgment negative lens. And so we definitely need to get more people like brought in and educated and things of that nature. And so like I said, man, it's good to be able to help spread that knowledge, which is a big reason why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome, Mike. Well, dude, so if people want to follow along with what you're doing, where can they do all that stuff?
Yeah, so you can find us on YouTube. So it's the Herp Collectors Network on YouTube. So Herp Collectors Network on YouTube, and we're also on Instagram. So it's at Herp Collectors and then Herp Collectors Network on Instagram. We've got Facebook too, but I'll be totally honest with you. Most of our Facebook stuff is just what we post on Instagram that feeds over to Facebook.
Same.
But you can definitely find us there.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking a moment to come away from your booth and sit down and talk with us today. I appreciate what you're doing and so well spoken and just like your heart behind it. And it's great. I'd love to have more people like you doing what we're trying to do here and just add to the team, add to the positive direction that we're trying to move this stuff. So appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to share with folks before you wrap up?
Definitely, if you don't get a chance, if you didn't get a chance to make it to the American Reptile and Plant Expo, definitely put it on your calendars to make it to one of the shows. This is a really great show. Not Bob, I'm sorry, I was thinking about Atlanta, but Troy and Nick, they've done a really good job with this show, and Bob did a really great job with his show as well. So we went to this back to back, Atlanta last weekend, Charlotte this weekend, and it's been an amazing time at both shows. You can tell they got a little bit of experience vending. And so you can tell that they really set this up with the vendors in mind. And so this has been amazing, great venues, just a great logistics. Like the whole thing has been like chef's kiss. So kudos to all those guys.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate
Thank you, sir.
That's good. Yeah. I think these guys, yeah, I mean, like you said, they're vendors. I think that helps out a lot with like, and their heart is definitely Bob for sure, and these guys too. Like they really want everybody to have a good show. And you can tell they're not just in it. They're not like trying to put on a show so they can make some money and like send them home. They want the people attending to have a good time and feel good about the show, and the vendors, and they really, really care. You can tell they care like deep within their hearts. It means a lot to them that everybody has a good experience, which is, I think, going to pay dividends. You know, and
Absolutely
just is amazing. Yeah.
These are, I mean, we'll look 3-5 years down the road, and these will be some of the top shows. Like I know it. Like this has been a great experience, and I hear it consistently. And not only do I hear it consistently, I consistently hear like the same positive feedback, and so that tells me that there's something there. And so I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the vibe. Definitely enjoyed the hospitality. It's been great. And Charlotte's one of my favorite cities. We were actually going to move to Charlotte a long time ago. I tell this story all the time because there's still a special place in my heart for Charlotte. We just never made it up here. We ended up like planting roots in Gainesville, and we've been there ever since. But if I were to move, Charlotte's definitely top of the list.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Cool, man. Cool. Perfect. That was great. You got a great flow, dude. I'm glad you're doing it. Your flow is like... Thank you guys for tuning in. Please go give Mike a follow on all his socials and check out what he's doing. Check out the people he's interviewing and see how those conversations are going as we grow this hobby to just continue to be a good place for people to be and exist and interact and do all the cool things that we do with animals here in this world. And yeah, I appreciate it. I thank you guys for tuning in all the time, and I'm certainly having fun with it. But again, appreciate you guys. Tune in next Tuesday for another interview here on the Redline Report. Until then, y'all take care.
I need that.
There's a lot to geek out on. A comfy spot right there. Can you scoot in a little closer to the table?
Yes, sir.
Just a tiny bit.
Okay.
As long as it's right in your mouth. You know, these mics are pretty...
What is that?
It's just a little fill light.
Okay, gotcha.
Just for... Because I'm trying different... I've always... But it's kind of... In this limited space, it's kind of tough to get the lighting situation that I really want. If I had a higher ceiling, it would make it all easy, but...
Makes sense.
The ceiling is not that high. It's just false color, so I can see where the exposure's at without having to think too hard about it.
So what's that orange and blue telling us? The orange is hotter?
The orange is like around the little sign there.
Just all of it, because I see like some on you and some on me as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like the brown orange. That's going to be like in the middle exposure range. And what I really want is the skin tones. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. What I'd like is for the backlit. So there's a green on there, so that I could backlit a little more and not get too crazy. Like that there would probably be good. I think you see like the green color up on the hat. Mm-hmm. That's like 75% exposure. So it's kind of what I want the skin tones, I guess, to be, and so they got good amount of skin tones in this snake right here. So I can see that's mostly that green color. That is funny because it's that puke green color that like lets me know that's the exposure that's good for skin tone. You would think they'd pick a different color than puke green, but but that's what it is. Yeah, I nerd out on this stuff because I like it. It's fun for me. But it can be a bit much sometimes, like bringing all this equipment and setting it all up. But it's
you get
worth
everything in that one Pelican?
I've got
not.
that one there, and then I've got a big SBK case over there in the back.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely got to get a couple of those cases because right now I've got like a little rolling wagon and I've got like a big duffel bag, but obviously I don't want it in like that soft stuff for very long. And then with the are we recording?
We're just warming up.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure it's all like check levels and stuff.
Gotcha. And with the rolling cart, obviously things can fall out. Like there's just so many things that can happen. But with like the Pelican case, you kind of got everything enclosed, and so you're protected from the elements. You're protected from yourself, like knocking something over, because I can knock something over.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that one. The Valkyrie was fairly inexpensive for a Pelican style, and then it's got this pull and pluck foam, so you can customize the materials inside. I'll show you after we're done recording. Like there's layers in there where I put these mics in. I put all my camera bodies. I put this light on the bottom. This light here, like everything has its own little like custom foam space that it fits in. Then my drone, that recorder, all the lenses, like they all have their own little section that they slide into and or don't move around at all and just held in foam.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty awesome.
Okay, yeah, definitely have to look into that.
Yeah, it's worth it. And then when it comes to checking at the airport, Robin could probably have you a media pass made so that you won't have to pay a crazy fee. Because otherwise, because that thing's 70 pounds, that thing's 100 pounds. If you're not media, like they'll charge you like $200 just for one of them sometimes.
Oh, wow.
But if you have a media pass, sometimes it doesn't cost you anything. So
Okay, that's good to know.